Assalamu alaikum guys, I'm your host Amna Tariq and you're watching Desi TV USA. I'm here again with another special report, so let's dive into it. On Tuesday, September 17, 2024, Ethnic Media Services organized a significant press conference titled Houston Ethnic Media 2024 Elections Get Out of Vote Briefing. The event took place at the Houston Endowment in Houston, Texas as a part of collaborative effort led by Santa Claus of EMS and the Houston Endowment. The briefing featured key speakers including Campbell, Shumway, Executive Director of League of Women Voters, Zamora, Field Manager at Mi Familia and Accion, Gail Trino, Executive Director of AliefVotes, Valdez, Director of Communication at Houston in Accion, Chen, Program Director at OCA Greater Houston Area, Durrani, Treasurer at EMGAGE, and Hyunja, Executive Director at Woori, Juntos. The central theme of the discussion was the critical importance of voter participation in the upcoming elections, as the Durrani from EMGAGE emphasized every single vote counts and every vote is important. With early voting set to begin on October 21, the message was clear: avoid long lines, save time and energy by voting early. This collaborative push to educate diverse communities about the power of their vote highlighted the ongoing efforts of various media-related platforms to ensure white voters turn out. A special request was made by all stakeholders to take advantage of early voting and make their voices heard. Now let's take a closer look and hear it from the speaker, and now watch the video please to be well informed.
The challenges of getting to vote, is it getting harder or easier, and why is a topic. I'm just thinking as an editor that's a good question, and here are some great sources that can address that question. This is really helpful because here I'll go back to California. I'm going to use a lot of what I'm learning today from you and bring it back to ethnic media in California. So really appreciate all of you sharing your expertise. Our next speaker, I'm going also to umbrella organizations here. Debbie Chen has run OCA, or excuse me, maybe run is not the wrong word, but all of these groups have been so helpful to us as we attempted to open doors and learn more for building our Houston ethnic media. So I see all of you as great allies. Debbie, you've been a great speaker also on our briefing. So tell us what you see in the AAPI and more broadly as challenges for engagement and what OCA is doing.
Thank you, Sandy. So OCA Greater Houston, like many of the other organizations here, right, we were all extremely negatively impacted by the passage of SB 1, which essentially is a voter suppression law in the last legislative session. And the passage of it, plus all the misinformation and disinformation around it, created a lot of confusion, frankly, I think fear in the community with individuals as well as with organizations. OCA Greater Houston joined some other organizations and with the leadership of ALDEF and the Texas Civil Rights Project sued the state. The trial was last September, like September of last year. We are now in September of 2024. We are still waiting on the results of that trial, right? But one of the key points, and before I even get to that, so based on a prior lawsuit that OCA Greater Houston had brought that started in 2015, right, and a subsequent injunction in 2018. And you can find all this detailed information on the ALDEF website because they led that lawsuit. It was for language access and protection of people's ability to bring someone of their choice who is not their employer and not their union representative, but that they could bring anyone that they wanted to otherwise to help them with voting, right? Now, for those of us who are limited English proficient, the state was making a distinction between a translator or an assistor, when in actuality, it's a combination of both. Essentially, if grandma brings granddaughter who is a 16-year-old high school student to come help her, right? It could be everything from walking with her to the ballot to showing her how to use the machine to translating or reading the questions. That prior lawsuit was, and injunction was upheld by the Fifth Circuit, the federal Fifth Circuit, right? And that portion of SB 1 was struck down based on that prior lawsuit. So people who are limited English proficient, despite SB 1's currently in place, that portion, they still have the right for language access to bring whoever they choose to help them go vote, so long as that person is not their boss or their employer, right, and it's not their union rep. So that opens the door for a lot of people. But then you have the other portion of SB 1, which essentially scared everyone into thinking, wait, when we were suing the state, and I testified to this account last year, essentially, well, what happens then for organizations that any nonprofit out there or any nonprofit that has young people out there canvassing, right? Knocking on doors, letting people know, hey, there's an election coming up. Here's some information where you can go to find out where to vote. Here's the sites that you can go to. Well, we are in fact very limited because most of our canvassers are young people just starting out in their careers, and we don't want them to potentially, because the language is written so broad, if you knocked on the door and somebody opened the door to talk with you, they had just checked their mail. Their mail is sitting on a chair next to their front door, and in that stack of mail, there's a mail-in ballot. Well, that is technically in the presence, right? And so what that does effectively, it means our canvasser can no longer answer the question when someone says, well, where do I go? Or can you help me read this? I don't understand this. We can't answer any questions to that. All we can say right now is, please go to FortBendVotes.com, go to HarrisVotes.com. Here are the government websites that you can go to find out information. We're actually actively training all of our canvassers to no longer be able to help people find out where to vote. All we can say is, here's the website, you have to go look it up yourself. I'm sorry, I can't show you on my phone or help you on your phone because the language of SB 1 is written so broadly, it puts a complete dampening effect.
Do you think this will have a dampening effect?
Absolutely, and I think...
And this goes to Hyunja's comment about why people hesitate and are fearful of getting engaged in anything that could get them in trouble.
Absolutely. And I think that's why this law was passed, written in this way, so broadly, so not defined, where use your imagination, you can think of any scenario and people are scared, right? So we are scared, frankly, right? That's why we are being very, very specific in our trainings for anyone who's canvassing. It's put a damper on the AAPI community. We used to participate, and we still participate in these candidate forums, but we would we used to have tables there with volunteers from all the different organizations where somebody could bring their mail-in ballot to the candidate forum or to any of our community events and ask for help. And now, not a single one of our community organizations can do that for fear of being in trouble or somehow being criminally liable because someone, is asking for help to understand how to fill out this ballot or where to mail it to.
So could I just shift back to Chris for a moment? What is Houston and Action's advice on this? Or what are you doing? What your challenge is to engage them, and what your advice is as a senior member of this panel to all of us about what gets people to care.
Thank you, Sandy, and thank you for convening this. I think I will speak for all of us over here that we all will benefit from, I think, media services having this kind of convening, but we hear from all communities. Because one of the issues that has always been is there's no one individual organization that speaks for all. Anyway, let me talk about EMGAGE a little bit, and I'm going to address exactly what you said. So EMGAGE is a civic engagement organization that works primarily in the Arab, Middle Eastern, Muslim, South Asian community, which are referred to as MMs. However, what people don't realize is that we also work within the African American and the Hispanic Muslim communities. And 1/3 of all Muslims, by the way, are African Americans. Very few people think of that. They mostly think that Muslims are South Asians, Indian Pakistanis, Arabs. Okay. We have been active here. EMGAGE has over the last 2 decades. Next year that we will have had 20 full years of organized work. We educate, empower Muslim Americans through educational events, voter initiatives, and leadership development to foster a community of knowledgeable and motivated, impactful citizens. Next week on Thursday, October 26th, we shall be having a candidate forum, not just for AAPIs, not just for Muslims, but general candidate forum where organizations like Baker Ripley and many of the community organizations over here will be participating. So, what is our current GOTV strategy? Like any other community, as we have heard today, this is
Just a minute, GOTV. It took me until this year to realize what it means. Get out the vote. Okay, stupid. GOTV.
By the way, one of the more popular, at least used to be, TV stations in Pakistan was GOTV. And they constantly were confused. Am I talking about get out the vote or I'm talking about this GOTV? Anyway, so EMGAGE utilizes multiple applications of what we refer to as a 6-touch approach to get people to come out to vote. None of them or any one of them is the solution. There's no silver bullet, but a combination of those, as we've heard today, basically are the more effective ones. Now we are a little over a month away from early voting here in Texas. In Texas, early voting starts on Monday, October 21st. So we're just over a month away. What we have done, and a number of other organizations are doing so also, we started our approach to this year's elections back in February. We had 3 phases. One is the grounding phase, which we have completed, a persuasion phase, which we completed 2 weeks ago, and now we are in our get the vote out to GOTV, which started on September 1st. So what are these 6 approaches that we use? One is true and tried, block walking, door knocking, canvassing as we call it. But it has 2 stages. One is where you actually try to speak to the person. The other one is if you don't get a chance to talk to them, just drop some literature with them so that they understand, hey, elections are underway. You need to think about participating. But if we stop there, we would really not be very successful. We then make sure that we send a mail drop, not one but several postal mail mailers to them, basically following up on the visit that we had with them. And obviously, like many of them, we have telebanking. We call people up, we have phone numbers, and then we have texting using relational. We also use ethnic media, and there are several ethnic media partners over here which we have utilized not once, but for well over 10 years to try and get across to, in different languages, to people in our Muslim community. And of course, lastly, we include social media ads. So what are our goals right now? And I will address what you had asked there. We want to maximize our voter turnout from our community. Everybody wants to do that. But one of the things we want to do is to widen the net, because our strategy, our philosophy was, if we can just talk to people in our community, we'll get them to vote. But by doing so, we basically squeeze our net to the point where we are not contacting as many people. So now we have said we're not going to do that. We're going to widen the net. Even if we have to talk to somebody who's not a member of our community, let's give them the information.
Schools today. So I'll pass the mic on to Oyen.
Abby, it's great you came here, even though you're so engaged with the school districts. We're really happy. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Oyinamola Akintola. You can call me Oyen. So as Abby said, I'm a student leader at Alief Early College High School. I'm a senior now. So a lot of work that we do with AliefVotes, mostly community events, mostly student-led. We're bringing young people into the community, having them volunteer, having them educate themselves, their families about the importance of voting. And a big part of that, like Abby said, is like right now at my school, we're having conversations about voting. I should be there right now also learning, but I'm here to also educate people about why voter registration is important in high schools. And as part of AliefVotes, even last year, we had a bunch of voter registration drives that I went out with my friends, and then we talked about the importance of voting. I talked to my friends about voting, and then we also registered students to vote and why voting is important in the first place. So that's what we see, like the importance of student voting. I think a lot of times student perspective are often forgotten. So I know a lot of my friends are like, hey, I think social media has also been a bigger part of this, because like right now we don't have a lot of political conversations, or teenagers feel like they shouldn't be involved in political conversations. So that's altered their views of voting in the first place. And so the bigger challenge is infiltrating that space and making a strong stand.
Basically are now retired and feel that, hey, I'm comfortable, why don't I just stay at home, be with my friends? Why bother voting? Okay. And then of course languages. We talked about Korean, Chinese, Vietnamese, others, but what are the Afghan refugees that have come here and who are now getting to be voters? They speak different languages. They speak Farsi, they speak Dari, they speak Pashto. Nobody's approaching them. We are. We are trying to put together our literature in it. So what has been our strategy? Of course, addressing this information, also micro-targeting specific geographic areas. Now, members of our community do not live in just one area, they're spread out all over. But they seem to be concentrated, some of them, in certain areas to micro-target them through canvassing. We also use, I hadn't heard before, use of trusted resources like community and faith leaders. EMGAGE, by the way, is unique in the respect that we appeal to a religious segment, which is Muslim, and we also appeal to the ethnic segment, like South Asians and Hispanics, as well as African Americans. We also use experienced consultants rather than just hire people. We try to find out who's doing the best work in this certain area and get them to try and help us out with that. And then, of course, developing election documents, election languages. As far as media is concerned, we have several media partners here. As I mentioned before, we've been utilizing them for the last 10 years. Now my experience about communities and how over the last month at least, not being partisan, we have started to see an excitement of getting involved. I'm not saying who to vote for, but now they see that there is potentially some choices, maybe at the federal level. As Chris has mentioned, we are focusing, telling them, do not think of the federal level. Also think down ballot, there are some very important races that we need to make sure those candidates win. We can't tell you who, which of course is a limiting factor, but there are very good candidates who could have an impact on their lives. You have heard of what others have said. We have had storms over here, we have hurricanes over here, ice storms. Our infrastructure here is god-awful in Texas, especially as far as this area is concerned. Whenever we have a little hurricane, we have electricity out for not a day, a week. I live in an area which is supposed to be quote unquote nice area. 6 days, twice we have been out. So those are the issues that I wanted to bring to the attention of all the people over here. And thanks again for convening this.
Wonderful. Final voter engagement. There's just a kind of general sense of discouragement. But then things changed. AJ, this is a nonpartisan panel, so I do want to say here we have one of the most active participants in elections who was on the National Democratic Committee, who went to Chicago. We're not asking you to talk about that from a partisan point of view. We're more interested as a
2022, and the mission is to empower youth civic engagement through civic education, leadership opportunities, and development, as well as youth-led community projects and events. The really started out to address that low voter turnout in the Alief area, and if you don't know where that is, that's in the southwest Houston area, and it's really known as kind of that cultural area with a lot of migrants there, and it's in the District F area, and in the past, District F has also been dubbed as the Forgotten District, but through the work with AliefVotes and a lot of our community partners, we worked on making sure that it's the district worth remembering, and it's the
followers again and interaction with the younger folks.
Yeah, what we use is so you can always have hashtag Mi Familia en Accion. We do Latinos Unidos, which is Latins together, and we do Siempre Juntos Always, or hashtag.
These are great connections. Okay, Abby, last question. I want to interview all these people in greater depth. Yes. Houston in Action arguably has the League of Women Voters a huge mandate to get all of the diverse populations in the Houston metro area to care. How do you do it?
Well, with the help of the people here on the panel who are on the front lines of making sure that people are informed and have access to voting, really. Our organization serves as support to be able to empower our organization and organizations and membership to have the tools that they need to do the work that they do, to have the communications capacities, which is part of why we're here in front of all these wonderful media outlets today. I wanted to make a point earlier about your question to Hyunja, is like, because of the position that we're in, we get to see a lot of the data around like effectiveness and which tactics work. And I'll say that in 2023, the single most effective tactic wasn't one tactic, but it was the combination of two tactics. To Hyunja's point, conversations in real life events were far and away the most effective tactic. And when they were coupled with a digital follow-up or a digital point of connection after that, became the most successful combination of things. So for everyone here who's thinking about their own events or covering their own events, thinking about how people are met both in real life, but also on their digital platforms is a winning combination. Yeah, I wanted to talk, and thank you, Sandy, for this platform. I wanted to share a little bit about a couple of things that have already come up. I think that we all know that we live in an increasing online and media culture of fear, of exclusion, that keep people at the sidelines or keep people disengaged. One of the challenges I think that we have is that culture. We also have a two-party system that leaves a lot of people behind, and we have candidates that are not necessarily inspiring all the time. And so I encourage everybody in this room to consider how to shape these moments of civic engagement and opportunities in ways that allow people to connect with them. And I think a lot of that has to do with the down ballot races. Of course, there's plenty of coverage, right, on the federal level, some at the state as well. But a lot of people, to the points that have already been made, care about what's going on with their property taxes, or care about what's going to happen if they're evicted, or who's in charge of whether they get evicted or not, or what's going on with the rights of immigrants in the state and who has power of those things. And so those things are things that we find because of the work of groups like the ones at this table, many people are often aware of these things, but might not necessarily connect some of these things to the offices in government. And so, just as an example, this year on the ballot, we have everything from the US Senate race to state representatives to district judges to justices of the peace. These are offices that determine the future of people in everyday life. And so the opportunity is there, if you know your audience well enough, to connect. What is it that people care about? What is it that people are thinking about outside of the big races, right? Like, everybody's gonna talk all day long on TikTok about, right versus left, blue versus...
The link to that article, because it helps put wind in your sail. Which of the outreach efforts that you're doing now do you think is the most effective? Because all of us need to share this information. Is it having volunteers who knock on doors? Is it holding a candidates debate? Is it having a kind of training program for first-time voters? Which are you most excited about?
For me, everything counts, everything important, but most important, conversation, having conversation, community conversation. So sit down and then talk to people.
So it's meeting people where they are?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions? This is such a dedicated group to reach an important but often unheard, invisible audience that make up a very important part of the Asian American, Pacific American. Yes, and it's great to see you. Glad you came.
Yes, I had a HGAC board meeting. Thank you for your presentation. My question is, you mentioned about the lack of engagement in the community relative to voting. What do you attribute it to? Is it fear? Is it just lack of understanding, or what is it, as you've met with the people where they are, what do you find reason?
Of course, the lack of interest. And the most important thing is civic engagement. They think this is politics. Politics. So in America, everything is politics, right? The social security and what else?
So is it because of maybe where they come from? Politics is a lot different as far as some of these countries are communist countries, or they have people that just make all the decisions and don't give you as a citizen the right to.
Yes, that is a big thing. Also, in our culture, when you get into politics, when your time is up, when the president is changing or power is changing, then you will be in trouble, So we are educated from the beginning. Don't stick your head, do not get into politics, that kind of thing. But with that, there are so many informations, but not enough information in Korean. That is our problem. So where people get information? So there it comes misinformation, disinformation. Why? They cannot understand the English, so they have to rely on somebody else who already prepared everything, right? They feed that kind of information, so that is not correct. Just an example. Example is like January 6th. When I saw that January 6th, I realized I was so angry and I was so mad, So I was so angry. But I realized, that day I realized, I am an American. I care about these kind of things. I do not want somebody doing that kind of things in this country, my country, right? But a lot of people think differently. That is challenging. Because they receive YouTube information from somewhere else, got feed by somebody else. So that is our challenge. So what we do to tackle that kind of challenges, we started senior fellowship engagement. So what we do is year-round civic, building civic engagement culture. So all day we talk about civic engagement and voting. And then, next page. So I'm so proud to share this one. We have, next one. We have a lot of fellowship program. But most important thing, I of our democratic process, like immigrant communities. Okay? So next one, please. How we work. Our work is a little bit different because we are an immigrant organization. So we have to meet where our people are. We have to meet where our people's need first. Then we can talk about civic engagement. Do you agree? Yes. So with that, we are building our base and organizing people and then get out the vote and educate in city of Houston and county and state level. Next one. So next one, please. But I think we are really focusing on relationship, voter engagement. Okay, so really building relationship with our community members. So we really become their trusted organizations. So where they can
Column for first-time voters. What do you need to know? That's a simple piece that everybody here could probably use your website information and build around it. So thank you very much. Please stay. There'll be more, and of course a delicious lunch. Oh, is there a question? Yes.
I remember the League of Women Voters organizing the presidential debates. That doesn't happen anymore. But do you have any local events for candidates?
Yes, so we will be doing candidate conversations. We've selected a handful of contested races, and those we'll be recording within the next couple weeks and have them available, and we'll make sure to share those out as well.
Okay, last question for now.
First of all, thank you once again. The League of Women Voters is doing an excellent job. I have two parts question. First of all, how do you get your funding? And number two, what was the criteria that I can see that you're Spanish, Chinese, and there when we have other communities, they are much larger than that one. And nowadays we have a new Afghanistan people have been here. So do you have any plan to have a different languages?
It's a great question. Love talking about funding. So we are primarily funded by individual donations and grants. And we have membership as well, but that is shared between the state and national leagues. So individual donations make the biggest impact, as followed by grants. And as far as the language selection, we follow what the county does for the ballots. And so we have to kind of create a standard for ourselves if and when we expand to other languages, so that way we are
Guide I found to questions like, how do you register? When do you register? What's the deadline to register? Stuff we want to provide as news you can use. I'd also add that we will send you a link to this extraordinary report done by the Houston Endowment, but it's 200 pages. But it's a great resource also for immediate information. There's nothing comparable I have found to the League
and
website.
We update it in between elections, during runoff season, during the HCAT elections. We update that website all the time.
So quick question. You've been in this for a long time. What do you think the major challenge is for all of us interested in engaging more people to get into the civic space, maybe ultimately register to vote and vote?
I think that one of our biggest challenges that we see is just getting this valuable piece of information and education out to people who need it and want it. A lot of people are unaware of this unless you're a seasoned voter. We forget that, when you're a first-time voter, it's very intimidating. And so anything we can do to instill confidence in voters is.
I have a daughter who's in high school, and I just told them yesterday that they are having an event today where they are saying everyone who is going to be turned 18 before November 5th, they're getting them registered to vote. And then I have a son in college who actually writes for my publication, my news. So they're going to be this is their first time voters. And so I was struggling with how do I teach them everything, right? Because there's some things that I don't know, and how to vote. And so I see that, and so that was very exciting for me. And just the question was, so do you have videos on there? We're the generation, they don't wanna
the important group Woori Juntos. So, sorry, but I took so much time in the beginning. So we are limiting you to 6 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And then Q&A.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. Hi, my name is Hyunja Norman with Woori Juntos. Woori Juntos is the Korean word Woori. Woori means we. Juntos is a Spanish word together. So we ride together. So I see the need working together in Spring Branch and Houston.
We would love to expand languages. I think for us, the big thing is making sure that those are reaching the hands of the people that need it the most. And so when we have a specific partner that can help with the distribution, then we can look at that. So because of the type of work we do, we have to get everything professionally translated through a special vendor. And so it's gonna cost. And then I also want to make sure that whatever we promise one election, we do it going forward.
For us, it's really a good thing. It reaches an audience that, we do ads and all that to talk about it, but I like to be able to share insightful conversations with our audience about the subject. So this is definitely a good thing.
Well, thank you. It's great job.
Hi, my name is Campbell from Korean Journal. Our weekly newspaper. Before our newspaper at the small population immigration community, our role it was very hard work. But right now, our community.
Harris County, the ballot will have Chinese language, Chinese ballot. So that's why we hope that through our video, we can be eyes, ears for the community to report on the issues people should pay attention to.
Right.
That's what we're doing.
So community events are very important for our media to cover as ways to inform our audience. Mr. Chu.
Mr. Chu, Southern Chinese Daily News. We've been in the market for about 40-something years. Routinely, we promote that.
Online Black men's magazine called RegalMag.com and a male panel talk show called Regal Roundtable on the CGM-TV app. The last news story that we covered pertaining to the election was when Greg Abbott purged 1 million Texas voters, and yet people were.
To give you guys a warm welcome today in our space. I also want to give a big shout out to our grantee, Ethnic Media Services, as well as our group of community leaders and panelists today. Before we get started, we just wanted to go over some quick housekeeping items. So in the case of emergency, feel free to use these 2 doors up here and exit from our lobby out in the front. In the event that anyone needs to step out or use the restrooms, we do have restrooms out in the lobby as well as 2 gender neutral stalls. If anyone needs to step out at any moment to take a call or a meeting, feel free to notify our front desk staff and they can get you into a room.
For the last 43 years, and we also, for the last 4 years, we have a radio show on 98.7 FM. It's on Saturdays from
on promoting the election and all that stuff, and also starting next week we are going to talk about registration.
Guys, you were watching Desi TV USA. Thanks for watching this special report. Take a good care of yourself and your families. Allah Hafiz.